Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We are in another episode of Ebb and Flow, and we have the honor of having Luba Nixon with us from Clean Lemon Co. I'm Rosara, and this is
Brenda.
And Luba, we are so honored to have you. You're a dear friend of ours. We've gotten to know you and your beautiful family, and we're just super grateful to have the space and the platform to host you and for people to know your wonderful story. So that being said, Brenda and I really want to get to know the you before you were a wife, a mom, an entrepreneur. So who was that Luba before you became all of these different roles?
Well, thank you so much for having me on here. First of all, I appreciate it so much. I love having conversations with women about subjects on women and femininity. I don't know if I've been asked that question in a long time. I was always very creative and kind of a free spirit. I needed to have something spontaneous in my life. And I am not normally organized, and I'm not normally organized with my thoughts. I have a little bit of the tendencies of this ADHD. I'm not diagnosed or anything, self diagnosed ADHD, where I will hyper focus on something and go completely crazy after it, where everything else will just kind of fall aside. And I still kind of have that, but I was very disorganized in my thoughts and kind of in my life for many years. But that came with this creativity, with this desire to create, with this desire to create something beautiful. I was always interested in not necessarily art, but DIY. So decorating home, moving. I'm always still moving furniture around. I don't know if that's just like a thing that women do, or if it's, I get bored and I need to feel creative.
Your space, thank you for allowing us into your space. Every single corner of that house is Luba coated with beautiful mirrors. Everything just goes together. And yeah, you're an interior designer in my eyes.
Oh, thank you. It's a learned skill to keep the house organized. It took me a long time to acquire the skill and practice it, but it's part of the reason why I've focused so much on like organizing each space. And in the last year, I have gotten rid of so many things in a house that were not necessary because I wanted to have the space that would allow creativity and flow of this like new energy and just being able to see what you have and use it properly. And my goal has been in this house to have every item have its place and meaning, even if it's just like random toys for kids. So it's certainly taken a lot of work to be able to, for me to have peace, to be able to organize the house. And that's something I'm after now. But I always loved being creative. And for me, it was expression of the way I dressed, an expression of word, writing poetry, or like the original blog posts where you have this long form writing, very wordy. And so that's still something I love.
I love that. And it shows, right? It shows in how you dress, how you carry yourself, how you host, how you bring people together, your home, your business, your kids, everything. Every single space that, when I remember, has its purpose. So you're very particular about that. And so, as we'd love to get to know the woman before all of these roles, but in particular that me and Rosada have helped and love your business model and your mission behind Clean Lemon. And we would love to show the audience and let them know how that started and where that origin of Clean Lemon came about.
Yes. So I started this business because it was a need that I had. I was in a season where I was very busy with kids, and I just really needed to take time to delegate cleaning my house. And then it was very hard finding someone that I liked their prices, that I liked their products. And around the same time, one of my kids had severe asthma attacks, and he was so young that you couldn't give him medicine. You really couldn't do anything about his symptoms. And so I really started researching, like, okay, what else could we do to improve his breathing, for him to stop wheezing, for him to be able to physically do more. And I think at this time he was probably between like 3.5 to 5. And so through research and doctor's visits and tests, we found how many things he was allergic to. And we had to get rid of a couch because of that, because he was allergic to a couch. It was ingredients in the couch cushions. And through this process, I found a company where I can get laundry detergent, clean, non-toxic products for cleaning, scents in the home like plugins that don't disturb, that don't have the fragrances, that have essential oils or are not heavily focused on additives in the cleaning products, specifically laundry, because it touches the skin. And from that, my journey into non-toxic products really started. And at the same time, my mother-in-law asked me to find her someone to clean her house. She had a really terrible experience with a company. They did such a terrible job and she was so unhappy. And it was still, they charged her the money. They came back to fix it and she still wasn't happy with how they fixed it. And so from that, the next step for me was finding a person. And my husband said, well, you have such high standards. You could never find someone who can do it as good as you would want it in your own house.
I do want to say Slavic women and their
Yes.
level of standards across everything is unmatched, okay? If you know,
Very
you
high
know.
standards. Yes. And sometimes it's like these are kind of too high of standards. But from that really came this business of high quality, high standards cleaning service with non-toxic products. And I just so happened to be hosting a Ukrainian war refugee at my house. And she lived with us for 7 months. And then she introduced me to a couple more people. And one of them, I was like, you know what, God, fine. I'll start a company. I'll do the back end stuff. I'll be the middle person if you give me 2 houses and if I have a person to start with. And within literally 24 hours, I had a person. I had a meeting with her. She said yes to part-time work and I had 2 houses. And so my mother-in-law was
You asked for the confirmation, right? And God delivered, and that's how you knew that that was something that you had to bring to light.
Yes, and my first 5 clients, I sent a text message to about 10 people. I still have 3 of them who are my regular clients bi-weekly on a regular schedule from original time when I started it.
That's incredible. And share a little bit more about that, about the women that you've been able to help. And I know a lot of these ladies, right, found themselves without anything, like looking for a brand new fresh start, and for you to have now the opportunity to give them employment, right, through this just magical synchronized way that it came about, right, from your mother-in-law needing the services to you needing them to then other people being like, there's nobody that does it like you. So then all of that came together and you were able to give these ladies these opportunities. And what has that experience taught you about resilience, or seeing these women in your life, because you do become close to them, right? They become a part of your family and they even have lived with you from what you've shared.
Yeah, it's taught me so many lessons. It certainly has been an experience that has challenged me personally. And the biggest lesson, especially in the beginning, was boundaries, because I'm an empath. I feel the energy of other people and what they're experiencing so strongly that it would affect me. So in the beginning, I wasn't sleeping. I just could not deal with just the feelings and the heaviness of it, especially in the beginning stages of the war. And I had to go back to, okay, why am I experiencing this? I shouldn't be feeling this pain, depression, heaviness, frustration. And like the pain was so deep. And it's like, well, okay, my family is now safe once I got my aunt out of the country of Ukraine. She's in Germany now. And my cousins, I was able to help them get out of the country. I was still experiencing so much internal turmoil. And that's when I realized I started paying attention to who was around me, and women who are refugees from war. That is an active war at the moment, when they are losing friends and loved ones, they were experiencing things that we just cannot comprehend when we have never been in a situation where our house is getting bombed and our neighborhoods are destroyed and we're watching it in front of our eyes. And so they were experiencing things and in survival mode. And so I first learned how to set up boundaries for me emotionally to protect. It literally had to physically build brick by brick, like a wall inside my head. So I could say, she's experiencing something really traumatic right now. This is not going to affect me emotionally. I have to be the stable one in this relationship. And also for my kids who see this, and it really was a valuable lesson, and it applies in so many different areas in business, in relationships with clients, because now I will see it. We have certain houses that they clean, they're like, this was just heavy, this was like a hard house, it felt emotionally heavy, and they're sensitive to this. And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know what's going on with them. We've had clients, we had to fire clients because they had so many issues and it was so difficult to work with them. They had these requests that were unreasonable and cancellations that were like, this is not how we do business. Whatever you're having and experiencing, we will not take that on to work with you. And so I don't think I would have been able to do that had I not learned how someone else's energy can impact us women when we enter their home to help them in their home.
So powerful, Luba. And what you're mentioning about the boundaries, right? You've done that across everything, across even with your clients, you've had to have those boundaries, right? So this is something that you have truly learned and embodied because of the situations that you created in your life, which were, you opened up your home, you got to experience the energy of somebody in survival mode. But let's be honest, even being around certain relatives, sometimes you're like, yeah, they're in survival mode too, to different degrees, right? And so that's so huge for us as women who are also very sensitive to realize, oh, I have to pay attention and then put those boundaries so that I can be a safe space for myself and for those around me. Otherwise, it can be felt and you'll see it,
Yeah, absolutely.
So powerful.
The second lesson that I really learned is when someone in this survival mode, when women came from war and they needed to find a fresh start, they were really just kind of a hot mess emotionally, and it translated into work. And so when I'm telling someone, here's the process, here's the procedure, you do this, you finish that, then you do this, then you finish that, then you do the third thing. You do not come in and do the third thing and then halfway through you get distracted and you do something else. That's kind of how you clean your own house, because when you start cleaning your own house, you're like, shoot, well, this baseboard is dirty, but you were working on making your bed and changing the sheets, and you're like, behind my bed, those baseboards. So now you leave your bed and your sheets, then you go get this thing, the duster, in a different room, probably somewhere on the opposite side of the house. By the time you go get that, you're distracted by the laundry that you forgot to restart. So now you have to restart the laundry. Then, now I have to take the dryer stuff out. You take that out to bring it to your bedroom, but you forgot the duster. So now you're back in the laundry room, and then you walk past the kitchen, the dishwasher. I forgot to start it. Shoot, I just need to drink some water and sit down. And now you're tired, and now you did not get done what you should have been doing, which is just make the bed and change the sheets.
You just described a woman's day-to-day life. I'm not gonna lie.
So this is not how we clean in my business. That is not how we do things in my business. But that's how they were functioning in the beginning. And so I was like, why is this taking you so long? Like, this is not a long process. And so then we had to really, I went through this like months of training, finding out like, okay, why is this taking you so long? I know how long this takes. This should not take this long. Okay, watching what happens, asking questions. And so, especially in the first 6 months, it allowed me to create systems and say, here's what you do first, and you do not move on until you've done this. And this is what you do next. And then, lists and writing on a piece of paper. We had to use timers on the phone. Like, there was all these tricks to train somebody who's in survival mode, whose eyes are like everywhere, to say, you are safe right now.
Yeah.
Here's what you do. Do not move to the next thing until you're done with this. And then it will be okay.
you brought presence to their life, right? Which is so key to regulating our nervous system too, is to be like, okay, let me not think about the future or the past. Let me be here and do what I need to do now, which your process, which you have the clean lemon Luba method. Did I say that correct? The Luba clean lemon method, which is so powerful that yes, you created it for your businesses and for your processes, but in reality, it was a way for also to connect to their bodies and to be present and not thinking about all of these things, right? That were fueling their survival state of just having come from, a horrible war. So that's really powerful, Luba. And everything you're sharing, I'm like, wow, as women, yes, we all need these processes because
Well, I need these processes. Like I need it now. And when you're going through something, let me bring this to like the real world. We do not deal with the war every day in our country, in our home today. Praise God for that. But what we do deal with is the attack on our mind, the distractions on our mind, and the emotional distractions, whether it's family or work or that email or that dreaded charge on your credit card. And you're like, oh, am I being hacked? Or, I mean, you name it, or an ex showed up somewhere, or someone wrote something, someone made a comment. It creates this emotional bubble that's about to pop your lid. And so that's the kind of instability that we deal with all the time. And then when you have kids, the tantrums, the random screaming because they don't have the skills to emotionally regulate themselves yet, you have to do it for yourself, plus teach them how to do it for them. And so this is so powerful for me because as I'm helping someone else do that, like this is really for me. And one of my methods is washing dishes. So if I'm feeling like I don't know what my next step is, I don't know what to do, I have decision fatigue, I don't know what I'm going to do in the next hour, and I have 7 different tabs open and I need to finish everything and everything feels urgent. Like even talking about it, I'm like, oh, this energy. But what helps me is to go wash the dishes because in my house, there's 4 kids, there's always dishes in a sink. So for someone, it could be vacuuming or I don't know, you pick the activity. But I like water running because the water makes me slow down and listen, and it's a textual thing. So I like to wash dishes. And as I'm washing dishes, okay, so I look at the dishes and I know it's an about 12-minute process. This is going to take me 12 minutes to wash dishes. And my brain now knows during these 12 minutes, I'm going to decide what the next best thing for me to do, just one thing after I'm done washing dishes.
Wow.
And that is all I do. And then it's like all of the thoughts, all of the anxiety that I'm experiencing about stuff has to go down the drain with washing dishes. Once I'm washed them, I put them away, I have clarity. Once I have clean counters, even if it's just in one space here, I know what the next one thing I'm going to do out of the 10 or 7 choices that feel urgent. And that really brings peace and takes me out of decision fatigue. And I still deal with this like weekly.
So it's so practical.
wow, Luba. And you brought up another point that we haven't even touched on, but I feel like this is the bread and butter of what we want to cover because number one, we have one of us who is transitioning into this chapter.
Yeah.
So you mentioned
Yes.
motherhood and you mentioned regulating your kids. And it's like, if we don't, kids are just a mirror of our own ways, right? Whether we are regulated or not regulated. So I would love for you to touch on that and share with Brenda and I, like, how was that transition for you? And how has that remained your priority as well? Because I know since we've known you, you've always said being a mother and being a parent, that is your number one priority. So please
Yeah.
share where.
How you manage all the roles, because from the outside it looks like you are handling everything very beautifully. And I know you have a lot of practicality and things like how you share that keeps you grounded. So please share with us your wisdom.
Oh, goodness. I don't know how much. That's a lot. That's a big question, a lot of pressure. I don't do everything as beautifully as it looks. There's a reason why Instagram stories and Instagram reel is just a highlight reel, first of all. But when I do fail and when I'm not happy with how my day went, I just focus on tomorrow. I'm just going to be 1% better. And it's no longer because I've practiced that skill. And that's from, I believe, Atomic Habits, the book Atomic Habits, just 1% better tomorrow than today. And I still practice that every day. but now it's kind of automatic. Um, so, some practical things. I really believe that motherhood and running a house is really like running a business. I think it's so similar. And I think that approach really helps me to say, hey, I'm the CEO of my house. How would I act as the CEO? Because you still have budgets, you still have to do planning, you still look at monthly calendars. Like it's very similar. You still have to have weekly meetings, sometimes daily meetings to discuss things and schedules. And now I homeschool, so I write out the entire schedule for the day. And it's just very simple on a whiteboard. I have whiteboards all over my house. And on the whiteboard in the kitchen, I have for them breakfast. Here's what we do after breakfast. Here's what part of school we're doing. Here's lunch. Here's, what's happening next. So they know, and it's very predictable. And it's really for me, so I can go check it off like, hey, I did this. And then don't forget what we're doing today. But my kids really love it. And now they can read and they love seeing the schedule. And I think just like in business, you have to have a lot of grace for yourself because you are learning, especially if you're starting a business from scratch. You have to have the grace for yourself to say, it's more important that I do this imperfectly, that I do it rather than wait for this Pinterest moment to happen for me to feel like this is it. And so this is exactly how it is in motherhood. No one is born knowing how to do it. We have some tendencies and some nurturing things that our mothers can instill into us to teach us how to, change diapers. And there's this thing girls have about holding a baby, and we have the feelings, but the actual practical skills, like it's all learned. And I think that as long as you take on the attitude of, I'm a lifelong learner, I'm going to get better at being a mom and being a wife, I'm going to continue improving every day. That's just like running a business where you have to take on the skills to take you to the next level. Sometimes it's asking a seasoned mom of 4 who has a 9-year-old now, like, okay, so how do you deal with the sports schedules? Because that's a whole other thing. How do you feed them? Because you're going to jujitsu from 4 to 6:30, and when you come home, 7 is when you start bedtime. So what kind of crock pot meals are you doing to be able to have a meal? And where do you do nap times when you have this happen? And so I've had questions like that to other moms. And sometimes, just like when you ask a mentor in business and you're not happy with the answer, you're like, well, it's worked for you, but I don't like that. I don't want to do that. Then you find your own way and just tweak whatever you're doing to make it work for you.
So good.
Wow. Yeah. And um, everything that you're saying is like, all right, having systems in place to create more order, to create more structure for your life to flow. Because if we're being honest, how else are you going to manage all of these different roles and different priorities and different things happening all at once if you don't have some structure? But I would say most of us didn't see, or at least for myself, I know I didn't see my mom having all this structure, right? My mom was just like trying to survive and trying to make it one day at a time.
In the
So the
moment.
fact that, Brenda and I can go to you and be like, all right, there's a different way of doing this. And it feels really inspiring. And not like we know that there's plenty of hard days. We know that it doesn't look like the Pinterest, highlights on Instagram. The reality is much more real, right? But to know that you can grow and evolve into a season where you experience peace, you experience more joy, you experience more ease and flow, and your kids are telling you this, right? It's so beautiful when we got together and we saw your family, like they're so alive and they're so expressive and they're so fully themselves, which means that you have created that safe home for them. And down to again, just how it feels, how it looks, the food, everything, Luba. Like you are our model of motherhood, and that we're
Thank
grateful
you.
to have you in our lives for sure.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
you've
That's a
managed to
compliment.
also create this structure of the CEO in every single role of your life. And I think like you've got it down to to a T where it's like, okay, let me just go back. Let me just wash some dishes to clear my mind. But it's like you're running it almost like a boot camp, but you're still allowing creativity, like you said. You're still allowing things to flow, and you're still allowing to give yourself grace by saying, hey, tomorrow I can do better. Tomorrow, you're not honing down on like what's not working, instead of like how can I do better the next day. And for that, I think a lot of women that want to do it all, I think, beat themselves up of like, oh, it has to be perfect, and if it doesn't, then I'm gonna look like a bad mom, where I'm not gonna get this out on time. And I think coming from your perspective is like, oh, let me breathe a little, and I can also do this the way she's doing it, but I can also find my own ways. And I think that's very, very beautiful.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. You know what you said, Rosara, about your mom? It's interesting because I wonder how much my mom was in survival mode. And I feel like we're in this really unique stage of life as humans where we have access to these new terms now, like triggers and trauma, generational trauma. And it's like, okay, my mom didn't know what that meant and that was a thing. She was just deep in it. And so it's a very unique situation. I find myself that with every pregnancy, with every baby, with every birth experience, with also every time I created a nursery space, there's something about creating a nursery space, painting this room, dreaming of this beautiful life and what it would mean, writing verses from the Bible on the walls, to create this like feeling and experience for this baby to be in this room. Every time I did that, I had this like release of something that I had this clarity where I'm like, no, this is a trauma that I'm not bringing with me. And this is what I'm releasing to God to take care of. And it's this powerful experience of we're the generation that has the words, but also the clarity to say, yeah, there's some baggage that these women came from, and some of it was probably generational from my grandma, my great grandma. My mom didn't know any better. She kept surviving, but I'm here to stop it from going down to my children. And now, this feeling, this experience, this view of money, view of lifestyle, view of what a woman's worth is, view on beauty, words that I'm speaking, I can stop and not say over my daughter's life because I'm not saying it out loud to myself first. And I had this epiphany when my mom was here and Georgiana was born, my baby girl. And my mom said something, and I was like, oh my God, I say the same thing. And I was like, that's where it came from. And I'm like, I could hear my grandma saying that. And it had to do with a feeling, and she described a feeling what she did not like about herself, but she described a feeling, and I was like, those were not even my words. I say these things to myself inside my head, and I'm like, they're her words, and I bet they're not even her words. So it's a conscious choice of, I'm not saying those words to myself anymore. I'm going to say this phrase so that my daughter hears different words.
That's the real time work, right? And that's the beauty of, like you said, 1% better, is that we're seeing in our day-to-day actions, in our engagement with people, especially with kids, man, they will reflect back so brightly everything, right? Your mannerisms, and you're like, oh, they're a sponge, they're absorbing everything. But the fact that we are the generation, like you said, that has enough awareness to not only see things but real time correct them and say it ends in with me, right? That I'm not going to continue this to the next generation. And that is so powerful and so beautiful. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no, we all deserve a fresh start. And I really believe that's what God gives us, that we don't need to take that on. And, we need to forgive and move on and not dwell on it.
Mm.
Yeah.
So beautiful. So with that being said, we're going to wrap up here. But before we do, Luba, for any woman that's tuning in, that's listening, that is going through this transition, this fresh start, you mentioned grace. Beyond having grace with ourselves, what else would you say is something that continues to prove to you that, you know what, I can do this, and I'm doing this whether I know how or not know how, but I believe in myself. So what would you say to those ladies who are in that?
That's such a beautiful stage. And what an amazing question. I like things practical. that really would help and ground you in your day. And I've been through many seasons of that. I feel like motherhood brings you through many identity crises. And what I would say to the woman who's in transition, who is unsure of her next step, or unsure of herself, or unsure if she's doing a good job right now, and she's in between where she left the past, but she's not here yet where she's going. And that in between stage is really like this epitome of an identity crisis. I would say to that woman, really hone in on your daily habits and learn how to stack them well. So you wake up, great. Have the exact same morning routine every single day, and then reevaluate it and don't add too much to it. So what I would start with is you wake up, you make your bed, you go brush your teeth first, go to the bathroom, come back and make your bed, get dressed for the day. 100% get dressed for the day. Put your makeup on. Put your makeup on, not just to put makeup on, but put your makeup on as the woman that you're trying to be and become that you're not yet. Every single day you dress like her. Because what you're going to find is when you're dressed like her, you're going to walk around the house, which honestly happens to me a lot right now. Like, this is how I dress during the day. Now, minus the jacket, and I'm wearing white pants, so not white pants in a house with kids. And I sometimes, like, at the end of the day, I'm like walking by a mirror. I was like, who is that? She looks good. And I'm like, inside, I feel like that. What is that character in Lord of the Rings where he's like shriveled up, crawling to get the ring? Like, that's how I feel inside myself, because sometimes the day like wrings everything out of you. But then I look, I'm like, oh, she looks like I look like that. Like, I need to act like that. And it boosts my feeling because I'm also not yet where I am trying to go, just like you are both probably, and many women out here listening who are trying to go somewhere where we're not there yet. And so just focus on what is this woman, be clear on who she looks like before you can say, I'm clear on what she does and what she acts like. So go for that and stack habits around it.
Love
Oh,
that.
most practical advice that anybody could ever want is act like the woman you want to be and dress like it.
We can implement that right away, and that is enough to get that started. And that brings a lot of peace, right? And calmness.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Luba. It has been a privilege, and everything you've shared, we needed to hear it. We needed to be reminded of, and I know many ladies tuning in will also feel the same way. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you for
for
the
your
honor of having me here. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care, everyone.